Good morning, Paul and Bhargav. It's Friday, the 28th of April. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 20 issues. In North Asia, we covered 5. And for Australasia and the Pacific Islands, we covered 7. In South Asia, we covered 17 issues, plus the major issues in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Great stuff, Uday. Go ahead.
In Papua New Guinea, 6 people have been killed in tribal violence near the Porgera mining area. Locals have also protested against the violence and that there are concerns that the mine reopening will be delayed.
Okay, this is very interesting. Of course, they're trying to stabilise the economy, but the government just doesn't actually want to fund and take seriously equipping an appropriate security force, training it and resourcing it. So it's a never-ending fiasco in PNG, particularly around the resource sector where wealth creates massive jealousies. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
In Papua, Indonesia, 5 Papuan civilians who had been detained last week by Indonesian security forces in Lani Jaya Regency were released earlier this week. They all came back with severe injuries. A 6th civilian died over detention. The Indonesian military has been doing operations in Lani Jaya Regency to search for the missing pilot from New Zealand. Lani Jaya is just north of Nduga Regency, where the pilot was kidnapped.
Yes, well, it's very interesting. It's now well over 2 months. The TNIs and the police are showing wonderful signs of conducting an operation called the Ultimate Fiasco, an indiscriminate burning of houses and villages and making arrests based on little to no judicial evidence is not endearing themselves, and it's manifesting a problem that's now 5 decades old. It's sad that such a well-funded military is so lax and that the government is so extremely ordinary in perpetuating discrimination and a heavy hand, when what they need is to understand the Papuans and allow them to have their culture and their religion. And the way it's going, the Indonesian government, the police and the military's behaviours are doing everything to turn what should have been an easily eradicated bunch of riffraff. They're going to manifest it into a major force against them. So this is sad, but very indicative of the mindsets that come out of Jakarta, both of the civil and the security force governments and leadership. Thanks.
In Myanmar, related to Myanmar, the Norwegian Central Bank excluded a Korean and Indian oil and gas company from its government pension fund yesterday because of these companies' ties to the Myanmar military, as they've still been doing operations with the state-owned enterprises there.
Well, that's the 2 latest in a list of very long bans. The Norwegian Central Bank has been particularly active, though of course they're not much of a key player in terms of global influence, albeit it is a big and successful central bank. It's not known for its geopolitical might. But thanks for drawing it to our attention. I've obviously asked that you pass that on to a couple of relevant clients. Thank you.
Yeah. In South Asia, in Pakistan, yesterday Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called for a no-confidence motion, which he survived.
So I would call that political grandstanding, a way of reasserting to the opposition who's actually in control. The ruling coalition led by PPP and PMLN, they have 181 out of 342 total seats in the National Assembly, which means they have 10 more than what's required to form the government. And irrespective of all the protests happening on the ground by Imran Khan and his supporters, will have no actual impact on the ruling coalition. So I guess even on the ground, this is reflective, as the protests have very little impact on the current coalition.
Right. And in India, the government has signed an agreement with the Dimasa National Liberation Army, which is an insurgent outfit that has been active in Assam and the borderlands region there.
That is a very positive move. I need to underline here there are multiple motives there. Primarily, the BJP, the current government, the incumbent party in government in the center in Delhi, They have been trying to reduce the separatist tensions in the Northeast ever since they came into power in 2014. And part of the motive is also to gain ground in the northeastern regions where the regional parties have dominated the state politics. In the last 5 or so years, you have seen more alliances with the BJP, which have come to power in Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, and a couple of other states, including Manipur, I believe. Now, there are some outliers here, like Mizoram, where the regional party is still in power, in alliance with the Congress, the opposition party. The separatists themselves aren't a major thorn in their spine, primarily because of increasingly or progressively reducing influence of these groups in states like Assam, which have, according to the current government, have seen a rapid growth in development, including road and as well as rail links. Hopefully that proves to be true and the separatist movements do die down. And if I were to underline another legal aspect of it, several states in the region are ruled under greater political economy or political autonomy, which also has a direct impact on the security in the region.
Right. Lastly, for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, in Nigeria, ExxonMobil resumed operations at its facilities after resolving the labor disputes over the pay and conditions. The strike had forced Exxon to declare force majeure on oil lifting at terminals in the country.
That's interesting, Uday. Thank you.
And regarding the Russia-Ukrainian conflict, Russia launched strikes across several cities and urban centers across Ukraine last night and early this morning. It is advancing in Bakhmut and claims to hold 80% of the city. The Ukrainian President Zelensky earlier this month has suggested that they may withdraw from Bakhmut to prevent an encirclement, but at this time they've not done so yet.
I fear he's somewhat too late for that now. I mean, it's been clear that Bakhmut's going to fall for what would it be, Bhargav, 6 weeks now, and talking about possibly withdrawing is kind of a little bit too late. He may prevent an encirclement, but there's nothing left to encircle.
I agree, Paul, and I guess it's too late to realize where his friends are instead of following like a sheep, especially the West. He needs to realize he lives in the underbelly of the real power in the region, that's Russia.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and unfortunately, this is yet another fiasco of a major superpower deciding it can control the world, impose its values, do what it wants. Obviously, their hegemonic power, they're doing more than anyone now to wrestle it away from themselves, just with a series of horrendous decisions. Thanks, Uday. Great brief.
Thanks.